What's going on, guys? I'm Landon from Shoeware, and today we're putting the newest models from Donovan Mitchell and James Harden's shoe lines with Adidas head to head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. But now let's go ahead and do a quick rundown for the box and the price first. So the D.O.N 3s do come in a blue box with that spider logo kind of centered in the middle there, since his nickname is Spider Mitchell. But the whole box is kind of like a Bel Air Athletics theme that kind of matches the colorway for the shoes too, that I'm going to get into in just a minute. And then looking at the Hardens, these come in a black box with some like multicolored splotches all over it. And that design actually does show up on a bunch of different colorways for like the Harden 5 model, just not at the ones that we're looking at today because we're checking out the polka dot colorway. But as for pricing, the D.O.N 3s are on the lower side, retailing for only $110, even though this is actually a special colorway that was $10 higher at $120, but the typical retail price is only $110. But the official retail price for the Hardens is a few notches higher at $130. And he is on his 5th pair while Donovan's only on his 3rd. So, you know, the price is probably trending in that direction, but that covers the box and price for these. So let's move on. So before I get into the performance comparison, I do just want to take a quick look at the appearance for each of these shoes first. So starting off with the colorways, today we're checking out the Adidas D.O.N Issue 3 Prep School Jacket versus the Harden Volume 5 Polka Dot Team Navy. So both of these models actually did make some really significant changes from last year's design, like just from the appearance alone. So the D.O.N.s took away that kind of wavy heel design from the back of the shoe, and they added like a crown look to the midsole. But you know, overall, I did like the look of last year's model just a little bit better. And then they actually had that in common with the Hardens, because I did think that the Harden Volume 4 did have a cooler look, if you want to call it that, than this year's Harden Volume 5 model. You do have Harden's player logo show up on a small tab on the tongue for these, and then the spider logo does make its way onto the tongue for the D.O.N Issue 3s. But you know, I really can't say I'm the biggest fan of either shoe from like an appearance perspective. But the best part about them is honestly probably their colorway, because you know, those are at least pretty fun. The band that runs across the laces has Bel Air Athletics on there, because this is actually meant to be a color scheme that like resembles their actual jerseys, which of course does tie back into the colorway name of the D.O.N 3 Prep School Jacket. So, you know, I thought those details were actually pretty cool. And then, you know, who doesn't love polka dots? I mean, probably a lot of people. But anyways, now let's go ahead and test these shoes out to see how they perform on the court. All right, so now looking more at the performance and the materials comparison, I'll start off with the cushioning for both shoes first. So the D.O.N 3s do have a light strike midsole that runs throughout the entire shoe. And, you know, honestly, it does have a nice feel. I will say that the cushioning from this year's model is a step up from how the D.O.N Issue 2 felt. And then for the Hardens, they did switch up from the typical light strike midsole that they used in the Harden Volume 4, and they went with what Adidas calls the Future Natural setup. And you know, the whole idea behind this was to create something as close to the human foot as possible. They even did a bunch of surveys and a bunch of like studies during this creation. So basically in this process, instead of the upper and the bottom being kind of glued together, they just kind of turned that all into one solid piece with some different with some high pressures and like high temperatures during that creation process. And you know, I was expecting it to be a little bit of a softer feel, especially since these do have some boost in that midsole, but you know, it really isn't all that noticeable. And then moving on to the materials, you do have some like sort of plastic feel to the textiles that run across the upper on the Harden Volume 5s, and they really don't feel the highest quality. But you know, it's not like the D.O.N Issue 3 is really going to wow you in that area either. They have some cheaper textiles that kind of cover the upper as well, but they are definitely more breathable, which does allow for some better ventilation. And then for the support, you know, it isn't really as good as the D.O.N Issue 2, but the D.O.N 3s do give you a better feel than the Harden Volume 5. They even put an Achilles pillow kind of lined around the inside of the Harden Volume 5, but you know, there's still some heel slippage back there. So, you know, these just really don't feel quite as secure. And then part of that is going to be due to the D.O.N 3 riding up your foot a little bit higher, while the Hardens, you know, they pretty much sit below your ankle, not giving you a whole lot to work with. And then moving on to traction, the D.O.N 3s, you know, they made some improvements from the traction, kind of fixing some of the inconsistencies from the D.O.N Issue 2 a year ago. While, you know, the Hardens, they definitely took a step back in that area. They don't really grip the floor all that well, and they attract dust pretty easily. And then for sizing, the D.O.N 3s do fit true to size, but the Hardens do run significantly bigger from what I noticed. I even went a half size down and I had more room than I would prefer to play in. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, just kind of depending on how you like your shoes to fit. So for the final ratings, I wouldn't really say that I love the look of either one of these shoes better than the other. I probably prefer the design of last year's model over both of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that at a tie. But for cushioning, the D.O.N 3s have a softer feel to play in for sure. Both are going to require some break-in time, but this is going to be one of those rare times that the Light Strike outperforms the boost in that midsole. And then the materials do provide a better playing experience on the D.O.Ns. There just really isn't much give to this year's Harden model, so the support is actually going to be pretty close because there's some okay lateral stability in the Harden Volume 5, but I did still feel more locked in for the D.O.N issue 3. And then the traction really isn't all that close. Not necessarily to say that the D.O.N 3s have like a superior traction experience, maybe compared to some other shoes, but the Hardens just really kind of lacked in that area. And I am expecting some big changes to be made to kind of fix that in next year's model. So that is going to end up making the Adidas D.O.N issue 3 the winner pretty easily. Some key things to think about is that you're going to be getting a cheaper shoe, with better cushioning and traction. The Hardens tried something new for this year's model with that Future Natural setup, and it just really didn't pan out like I thought it would have, especially with that higher retail price. I just expected there to be some more highlights to this shoe, than there were deficiencies, and unfortunately, it just really didn't end up shaking up that way. But just in case you do want a little bit more of an in-depth review on each of these shoes, we do have individual shoe reviews live for each pair where I go a little bit deeper into these models specifically. So feel free to go and check that out. And then if you're interested in purchasing either one of these shoes, just go ahead and check out the links in the description below. But that pretty much wraps up our performance comparison for the Adidas D.O.N issue 3 versus the Harden Volume 5. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. Feel free to leave a comment below, just letting us know if there's any other shoes that you want us to check out in the future. But until next time, I'm Landon from Shoeware. Peace.